Welcome everybody to 3D Printer Chat, the 3D printing podcast show. And today I've got an extra special guest. He's going to make you want to do 3D printing. He's going to make you want to be a better designer. He's going to make you want to do remote controlled Formula One cars. He's going to make you want to do quadcopters and truggies, and basically everything. Is like world-class, interesting guy. So without further crappy introduction, Daniel Noree, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for the introduction, by the way.
Was the pronunciation of your name right? Because I did practice.
It's perfect. It's great.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to call you Daniel from now on because I'm just terrible with
That's good.
getting people's names right. So I asked on Facebook, what did everybody want to know about you? And I think there wasn't really any consensus. It's just, yeah, we want to know everything. So that's not very helpful. So I'm just going to ask you about everything, if that's okay.
That's okay. That's just fine.
Let's start at the beginning. You're well known as a designer, 3D designer, and I get the impression you don't use things like Tinkercad and Fusion 360, am I right?
These days I use mainly Fusion 360, actually.
Oh, okay. Got the impression you're using a thing that I'd never heard of. It's not SolidWorks, it's like...
TopSolid.
That's the one.
Yeah, I used to use that a lot, but then I switched jobs and I swapped the software as well.
Okay, so did you work for them or?
I worked at a manufacturing company and we used TopSolid. So naturally, that was something I grew quite fond of. And I actually had a blog and a YouTube channel about it as well. And then I switched to Creative Tools, where I work right now, who sells 3D printers and all kinds of 3D related softwares. And they used their Autodesk reseller. And so naturally I swapped to Fusion 360.
So is that how you got into 3D printing, through your work?
Yeah, sort of. We didn't have a 3D printer at our facility. We manufactured sheet metal enclosures and anything related to sheet metal, really. And one of our suppliers had the 3D printers. That was back in the 1999 or something like that. So that was the first time I saw a 3D printer, and I immediately knew I wanted one. But at that price, they were totally out of my reach. So I kept dreaming for another 10, 11 years until I bought my first MakerBot Thingomatic, which was an amazing machine.
Actually, at the time, that was like the gold standard, right? That was like Ultimaker now.
It was the only one I knew. So, yeah. But when I saw it, that because I had been, dreaming of one of those Stratasys machines, and suddenly I just saw something. My colleague told me about this machine that was like $1,000, and I ordered one immediately. I didn't, think. I just ordered it because it was just a dream come true, sort of.
And did you stick with MakerBot as things progressed?
Absolutely. The last one that I bought was a Replicator 2X, which I still have. And print with it all the time. And when I started back in 2011, I watched all the videos with Bree and Zach and those guys, Adam as well. So I watched them a lot, and all the things that happened later. That's that's another story.
I'm hoping to get Bree on the podcast. Actually,
that would be great.
I've got a friend
at
who knows
that time. And whenever I had any problems with my Thingomatic, I had such a great support from MakerBot. They sent me spare parts, no questions asked, great help. And so all the talk about them being crappy and all that stuff, I missed that because at that time I didn't have any contact with them at all. So my memories from MakerBot, they're all good.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the MakerBot stuff is partly like the IBM and Apple, and whoever's dominant at the time gets all the hate, right? So they did do some things that were a bit weird, but also I think It's just the big name gets all the arrows in the back.
Yeah, there's always a lot of things to a story, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I bought my Thingomatic, and then I bought the first replicator, which I also liked a lot, and the Replicator 2X.
And what is the rest of your fleet now? Because that's not what I've seen in the most recent videos, is it?
Well, right now I have my 2X, I have a 6 Plus 3D printer, I have a BCN 3D Sigma, and there's a new 6 Pro, and I have a FlashForge Dreamer, and the PrinterBot Simple 2016 edition, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's the one with the screen and...
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the previous one to that with no screen, but it was a real good printer. That's what properly got me into 3D printing, that machine. So
yeah, I love the new one. It's great, and the kids use it all the time because it's so simple to work with.
Yeah, I think that's where they're going. But they've also got the treadmill one, the one with the conveyor belt, so it's got unlimited Z. Yeah, I think I'm correct.
Yeah, the printer belt.
Yeah, so yeah, some innovations still coming. So do you get any help from work, or do you get like printers through work, or you said you worked for Creative Tools. Do they supply you with anything or sponsor you?
Well, not maybe in that way, but I have access to all the printers that we sell, basically. So
you get to exposure to a lot of different things through that. It's like
exactly. So whenever Formlabs, if they release a new printer, I get to play with that. If Ultimaker release a new printer, I get to play with that as well. So without having to buy one or...
Yeah, Ultimaker, if anybody's listening from Ultimaker, that's what I'd really like to get my hands on. It's my birthday coming up. just saying.
Just saying.
So you basically got into 3D printing really early because you got exposed to it in the 1990s. Most of us, it's like in the last decade, we even saw a 3D printer. How have you seen things change, and how do you see things going? What do you think the progression is going to be?
I think it's a hard question for me to answer because I'm already there in when I bought my first Thingomatic and I realized I could, materialize my own digital designs. It's just, that's it. I won. It's there's a lot of talk about the printers have to, print at a higher resolution. They have to be faster, more colors, more materials. But if you just stop for a while and think about it, you can, create your own designs in CAD and then just print it. Like one of the quadcopters, I was out flying it the other day. If somebody would have told me like 20 years ago that you're going to be able to print your own RC cars or quadcopters or whatever it is you want to do, I would just have laughed. But yeah, we're there, so you can make your own things. I think it's amazing, and so I see a lot of talk about what's coming, and we need metal printers or whatever. It's just I'm standing on the sidelines a bit, I think, because I'm already really, really happy with what I got right now. So, but I mean, of course, it's always interesting to see what's around the corner, and I mean, I also want to be in on that, but I don't put too much focus on it.
So you're in the future now. You've got your future, and you're happy with it.
Yeah. I'm really happy with what I got now. I can, as long as I can materialize my designs and make, play around with that and, go out and have fun.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
In one of the previous episodes, I did the 13 phases of 3D printing, and I think the ultimate, you could call it self-actualization, is when you have an idea, you design it, and you print it, and you hold it in your hands, and it's like, even my little electronics enclosures, it's like dream come true, literally, because you've dreamt it and then you've got it real. And I think that's the ultimate for 3D printers. So I'm glad to hear you say that. But you basically invented some hobbies. I don't know how much you realise what a figurehead you are for this, but all your Open RC stuff has created like sub-hobbies within 3D printing and within RC. You've created reasons for people to buy 3D printers. I don't know how much of that do you get much exposure to that? Do people come up to you at conventions and, like maker fairs and stuff and want to shake your hand?
Yeah. I mean, Not in Sweden, perhaps, but when I went to the Midwest RepRap Festival, that happened. Sure. Yeah. And people send me emails and with all kinds of awesome stories about, how they fathers or mothers and they build these projects together with their kids and, as a way of being together and doing something.
It is
together.
Awesome. I think the two biggest reasons people ask me about 3D printers outside of just 3D printers are cool is they want to make their own Star Wars robot, or they've seen your Open F1, Open RC F1, the gateway drugs to 3D printing. It's fantastic. Is that your main use of 3D printing now, doing all of that, or is the stuff that you don't talk about that is where you mainly employ them?
That's probably the main thing I'm doing, the Open RC project, that I put most of the time in doing. But sure, I do all kinds of stuff. The other day I had a friend come over with a bunch of spare parts for a vintage car, a bunch of plastic car parts, and he needed more, and you can't get them anymore. So I basically, just recreated them in Fusion 360, and he got the digital files, and I printed a few as well, and you got unlimited spare parts.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and things around the house, or friends asking for something, or it's just anything really.
Practical prints, it's the best.
Yeah.
Now explain to me, you do all this stuff and you give it away. So can you explain to me why Open was such a big part of what you do?
One of the things when I bought my first Thingomatic was that I got in contact with was that I hadn't heard of before was open source hardware. And, I've heard of the software side, but I didn't realize that there was, something similar for hardware. And so that was something I learned about when I bought my Thingomatic. And that was something I really grow quite fond of. And the idea of sharing, without any, asking for anything in return. That's just, I think that's something amazing. And I wanted to be a part of that and do that myself as well. So I always try to, I'm not perfect or anything, but I try to, give away as much information as possible. And always with all the projects, there are all the STL files, but I always want to add a assembly file, like a step file of the entire assembly, so people can download it, open up in Fusion 360 or whatever CAD software they use, and manipulate it, or make their own changes or own designs, maybe based on it, or use it as kind of a blueprint for their own project.
Yeah. But do you get upset when people like on Etsy and eBay and they're selling them? They're selling the prints?
Well, no, not really, because the license that I use allows for commercial use, like selling the 3D printed parts as well. But sure, people make their own versions or edit the parts and release them as their own designs and stuff like that, and
without attribution.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know. I really don't want to get into an argument and go after people and because of that. So right now I haven't done that yet. And in general, people are doing the right contributions, attributions mostly. So
yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a hippie, and I believe in what goes around comes around. From the open source software through to the open source hardware, I think the more you give, the more you get back, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, if worst comes to worst, I just stop releasing designs. It's just as simple as that. But,
please don't.
but I think, if you feel better about yourself, borrowing something from me and not mentioning me or whatever, if you feel better about yourself doing that, just, go ahead and do it. It's up to you, really. It's not like I'm going to come after you, but who knows what happens in the future.
Yeah. So do you get any rewards out of it other than the feel-good factor? Has it been good to you for your career, or I know you've had a few sponsors, but does it add up to something that makes it worthwhile outside of the enjoyment?
Yeah, sure. And I think what makes it all worth it is not, I mean, sure, I get sponsors, which is great. I don't have to buy materials, and these days I get the printers for free and stuff like that. But the best things is probably the love from the community. It's just amazing, all the positivity I get thrown at me all the time. It's just amazing, and that's probably, why I keep doing it, because I mean, I love doing it, and getting all the positive energy in return, it makes it even better.
Yeah, well, I would give you a hug, but I think our beards would stick together like Velcro, so probably best that we don't. So what's next for you? What, other than coming on the podcast again? Obviously, that goes without saying. What's next for you? Have you got anything you're working on for 2017?
I've got 2 projects I'm working on currently, but it's hard to find the time to put down the work needed, really, with family and work and all that stuff. So it's going really slow, but I'm not in a rush, really. But sure, I'm working on that. And
the secret? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I won't tell you right now, but who knows, in a future episode.
So you definitely have to come back on it. Yeah. You have to. That's it. That's a contract now. Everybody can hear that you said you're going to come back.
And also, I need to, have fun with the projects that I've already done. Because
no, you're not allowed to have fun anymore.
No, okay.
You work for the community.
It's all work.
Yes. We own you now. Okay, so I definitely want to get you back on the podcast, because I didn't get to ask you about in detail the Open RC stuff. So would you be willing to come back?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Excellent. And everybody else listening, get your feedback into us. What would you like to hear from Daniel, and what would you like me to ask him? Because he said he's coming back, so we're going to have him back. Thank you very much, Daniel, for your time today, and we'll look forward to having you back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
As a parting tip, is there anything that you would like to tell people in the 3D printing community to do less of, to do more of? What is your advice for people to get the most out of it?
I would like to see people. I noticed there are some that are afraid of doing, realizing their own ideas, because they're afraid of what people will say. But I think just go after your dreams and, your ideas. Just give it a try and see what happens. And don't listen too much. I mean, you should take advice from others, but don't listen too much to what others say. I think you should believe in yourself and, do what you want.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And please do give us a review, like us, share us, and most of all, listen to us next time. Thanks, everybody.